Welcome back to the Prime People Podcast. Today's guest is somebody who turned her love for storytelling into a destination brand that is known worldwide. Meg BradyHouse is the founder of Bradyhouse Studios out of Hawaii, and she's actually from Canada. So we're going to dig into her story on how that even happened and how she scaled and built a business out there. She's captured thousands of weddings. She leads a creative team, and she's building a life built on purpose. If you're a creator, entrepreneur, or anybody trying to scale your craft without losing yourself, this conversation will show you the systems, the mindset, and the counterintuitive moves that made it possible. Yeah, no, when did you come into the community?
So I started it at the end of May. I think my first call was at the beginning of June.
That's awesome. And you've been on a bunch of times too. I noticed that you've got to ask a bunch of questions and gotten good value from it, but it looks like you're actually making it work, right?
Yeah, I'm doing my best. Yeah, so I ended up photographing that. So the reason I found Dan Martell is that I was hired to photograph him in Hawaii when they were here on vacation for their couples retreat last year. I didn't even know who he was.
That's
and
amazing.
I was kind of like, who? I was like, who is this guy? And they're just flying me over to Oahu, and I just thought it was like kind of ridiculous, actually.
That's really funny.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then I hung out with them. I was like, who are these people? And then I started following them after, and yeah.
Oh, that's super interesting. Wild. So like, what was your thought around, obviously you get mandated for all kinds of creative jobs. Like, I guess what made you look into them after you were with them for a little bit of time?
I think just the way that he carries himself, and then the way that he was talking to me about my business while we were shooting. And I honestly just didn't do my homework, and I didn't really look. Like, we shoot so many people. We photograph, we have 5 different shoots a week. So I'm not like constantly doing background checks on everybody. And so, but he carried himself in such a confident way. And also like the thing that I was doing for them was very high end and very high level for just like a regular family shoot. And so
you're like, where's their budget to be able to do
what?
This shoot for like family portraits, right?
And they were like flew me over to Oahu from Kauai and like put me up in a nice hotel and everything. And I was like, what is happening? Who are these people? Yeah. So I started following him, and then immediately he reached out and was like, hey, thanks for the follow. And I was like, I'm your photographer. And then I think that, like the sales team handles that part. And then he jumped in and was like, oh yeah, no, like started talking to me a bit about my business. And yeah, it was just an interesting like way to get brought into his world. And so I just watched that was in February. So I watched for 3 months probably before I was like, okay, I need to get in this world.
How did they find you? Like, to want to fly you over from Hawaii to do a family shoot? Was it in BC that you did the family shoot for them?
No, it was on Oahu.
It was in Hawaii. Okay, I'm sorry.
It was in Hawaii, yeah, but it was a weird story. So his creative director, Sam Martell, or Sam, I don't even know what his last name is. Godget, I think.
Okay. His guy is Sam, so he doesn't make his employees take his last name, is what you're saying.
Yeah, no, he doesn't make. That's right. Sam's assistant is the sister of one of my very first weddings I shot in Canada 15 years ago. Wow. And so I guess she has been following me, and she was sourced with the job of finding a photographer in Hawaii. She knew that I was out here from like 15 years of me shooting her sister's wedding. And then, she ended up just hiring me because she knew me and she knew I'd do a good job. So it was a weird like interconnection from literally one of my first weddings when I was like 22 years old.
Well, it makes me think too, though, right? I was actually talking to Sam, my media guy, who's here filming reels behind the scenes, about Thursdays. So like Thursdays are media day here. I actually did a presentation to big sales and leasing team and kind of talked about everything. I said to him, I'm like, well, the reason we do this is we document everything and then we put it out on social, and it will attract the right fit clients. So like, you're an example of that, right? You shot weddings, you posted on social media. This girl followed you for years, got you in Dan Martell's actual like physical presence. And then now you're in the ecosystem, like proof positive that posting consistently does actually work, right?
Absolutely. And it's wild. Like, your return that you see on that might not be tomorrow, but to think that something that I did 15 years ago has now literally changed the entire trajectory of my life here in this moment is wild to me. Like, it's such a cool concept.
Yeah. Well, I love these conversations. It's why I do the podcast. Is like, the initial thing is a lot of real estate agents and entrepreneurs will watch this and be like, well, you have a photographer on, what could I possibly learn from them? Like, well, you have somebody that took a creative talent, built a brand. They obviously have to market and sell. They have to build a team and systemize. And I guess that's some of the things I want to get into, but why don't you take me first to like before Bradyhouse Studios, what was the moment that made you decide that this was going to be the path for you?
You know what? It's kind of a hard question because I've had to reinvent myself and rebuild this photography brand more than a couple times from like moving and just life changes.
Sure.
And so when I initially started the company, I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't think I would be a wedding photographer for 15 years. I was in university to become a teacher.
Interesting.
And it just took speed a little bit. And I'm definitely someone who defaults to action. And someone asked me to do a wedding. So I was like, sure, I guess I do weddings now. And then I just all of a sudden had, 8 weddings and I was making pretty good money. So I finished my undergrad degree and I pursued that. And then I ended up getting a divorce when I was 23 years old. And so that kind of shifted everything. And I was like, I'm moving out to Hawaii. So I just picked up from Canada. I moved out to Kauai with literally nothing. And then I started over. And here you can shoot all year long. So that was like a reasonable transition for me to try and switch my business over here. And then, it's just like an amazing lifestyle. I honestly just hate working for other people and having other people tell me what I can and can't do. So I think that since I've been 20 years old, this is what I've been doing.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, you left Canada, you built a business on a remote island. I guess what was the hardest trade-off when you made that decision?
I would definitely say this is a very transient place. So people aren't used to trusting someone who's new here because of how many people move to Hawaii and think it's going to be the dream and then realize it's actually just real life out here. Yeah. And, it's hard and it's really expensive and it's very hard to fit in such a small community as well, especially being from someone from the outside. It's not what everybody thinks it is. And so for me, the hardest part would have been breaking through that and just staying consistent and staying here. Because it would have been easy the first whole year, I never shot anything in Hawaii. I kept flying back to Canada to make money, to shoot in Canada. And then I'd come back and still try and like make connections and figure out how I was going to do it. And then it just was really slow. So just being able to like withstand the speed of which things move in Hawaii island time is like a real thing. So just being able to withstand that and stick it out until I was able to like land all the contracts for the hotels and build a team. And so it took, I'd say, a good 4 or 5 years before I really got things rolling again here.
And that's a great way to look at like you being committed to the process for that long. Because I was thinking about as you're talking, like naturally, if you do wedding photography, a lot of people probably get married where you work out of in Hawaii. Am I wrong by assuming that?
It's crazy every day.
Yeah. See, and like, okay, so now you go to the hotels who are the source of those referrals, develop relationships with them, show them that you can deliver. There was were there any times during those 3 or 4 years where you thought it felt like you might fail? And I guess what pulled you through some of those moments?
Yeah, definitely. There was more than one for sure. And I also was canceled one time on the national news. So that was definitely a moment where I wanted to possibly quit, but I didn't. So basically I was shooting in like locations without a proper permit unknowingly, granted, which is fine. But a photographer here reported me and then they decided to use me as an example since everybody was also shooting at the same location that I was. And so they put it up in national news. And so that was a real, like right when like COVID was coming out, like we were just coming out of COVID, I was just picking up some serious steam with our business that happened. And so there's been lots of moments like that where you get discouraged and you feel like maybe a little disenchanted with the place or the idea of what you're doing here. And when that happened for us, we just decided to pivot. And we went back to big weddings on private property for a little while so I could figure out my permitting process, make sure that I was following every single rule possible. And that as long as you're willing in business, I feel like, especially when you're in something for so long, when things come up like that or things change, as long as you're willing to pivot and make minor adjustments and don't panic, just kind of sit for a minute and think it through. I've found that can really help keep you going.
Yeah, I mean, a little professional courtesy would have gone a long way. Like, I mean, we deal with that in the real estate industry where if I see something first, I call the agent and the broker of record and I'm like, hey, this is how this should be done, and give them the opportunity to correct it. If they don't, then we go to professional standards. But I mean, like, man, would that have made a difference had they called you and actually built a relationship with you instead of reporting
absolutely
it?
And like the wild thing about that situation was I had been warned a year before, so I had been following every single rule perfectly for over 365 days by the time this came out into the news.
Yeah.
So it felt a little bit like not quite proper
Honest, right?
representation. Yeah. And so I did fight it a little bit. And they came out, 4 days later on the news and corrected their statement that I had been following all the guidelines. But at that point, the story wasn't juicy and
whatever. Like I've seen that locally too, where like I've seen stories written about people that were entirely untrue, knowing stuff that was happening behind the scenes. And then when the truth comes out, they post a tiny little retraction on a back page that nobody reads. But it's also a good lesson. You probably realize that like when people were trying to tear you down, the people that lean into that stuff don't really matter. Like the people who actually matter usually don't even pay attention to that stuff because it's not real, right?
Yeah. And it was a really good like character building moment for me where I could have taken that and used it as like my entire personality to crash land basically and feel sorry for myself. Yeah. And we definitely had a few days of like panic a little bit, just being interviewed in so many different news articles throughout the country.
Yeah, that's healthy though. It's, I mean, you got to sit.
Honestly, you learn how to deal with those things, and then when the next thing comes up, it doesn't feel like it's so hard, and you learn to trust yourself that you'll move through it. We'll figure it out. Like we're just doing the best we can, and I think that for myself and my husband, it was a really good like character building moment that I feel like we can pretty much handle anything.
The worst thing that ever happened to you is the worst thing that ever happened to you, right? Dan talks about that on his calls all the time. Yeah. I'm so curious about something else though. So like, paint me a picture of what your life looks like now. Do you still operate in Canada and Hawaii, or are you strictly in Hawaii?
No, we're strictly in Hawaii. Yeah. So, we shoot around 100 to 150 weddings a year out here now. We have built our company. I got married to Peter and then he joined in and we offer photo and video, and he's actually our primary shooter now. So I trained him 8 years ago and he's amazing. And so when we have a job that just requires one person, Peter goes and photographs that. And if, a more high-end job or something that requires two of us, then we'll both go together. We have 2 little kids. So just navigating that, and and a team that's behind us that's helping with all of the post-production and things like that, just in order to take that much volume.
That's exciting. What do you shoot on? What type of camera do you like? Just for personal question.
Yeah. I have a Canon R5, the mirrorless.
That's exciting. I have an R5 in my bag, and that's my favorite brand. So I was going to say, you can gift the little ones a couple T3Is, and then eventually you'll have 2 little shooters that are coming up through the company with you.
Absolutely. Guys, right? Oh yeah. No, my daughter, we just started shooting film quite a bit, and my daughter's all about shooting film now. So I guess that's making a comeback.
I love that. Actually, I don't know if you follow Peter McKinnon, but he was actually in London recently at a film studio on Adelaide. But I digress. I'm going down a wormhole. If you're a photographer watching this, you get pretty excited. Yeah. But I'm thinking like the business operations side, right? For the real estate agents and the entrepreneurs that are here. Like you were operating in 2 locations. You were still doing the one job while you're getting your feet planted in the second. Now you keep saying weddings. Is that your primary focus? Is it all, focused on the wedding business, or do you do other things beyond weddings?
So we specialize in weddings. So that's definitely like we've shot over 1,000 weddings. I could walk into one with my eyes closed and kill it. And so that's where we put a lot of our time into marketing, and we get a lot of the higher end weddings here in Kauai because we do specialize in that, but that doesn't limit our inquiries for family stuff, or we fill our calendar when we need to with smaller jobs and families. And I mean, people are traveling here on vacation all the time and want to get lifestyle photos done. So we end up doing a lot of that, but that's mostly Peter's realm. I just stick to the higher end weddings now that I've been doing this for so long. But our company does all sorts of stuff like that.
And are you primarily business operations and scaling the business and having to let go of some of that hands-on stuff that you used to do? What's that been like for you?
At first it was really difficult because especially as like an artist in this type of job, it's very hard to let go of the control and the ego that says like, oh, it's like only I can do it and they're hiring me for me. And so that took me a little while to let go, but I ended up getting shingles when I was, I think 26 years old on my face because of burnout, because I was just trying to do everything all by myself. And it ended me in the hospital. And so that was like a wake up moment for me where I was like, okay, physically, if I want to make this much money or I want to make it this far in my career, I'm not going to be able to do it all by myself. And so I ended up hiring an assistant. That's when I brought Peter on. I also hired an associate photographer that year. And so I just started to like step back and realizing that people actually aren't paying that close of attention and that it didn't actually affect my income, but it doubled it. And so that was a huge year for me, and just perspective shift of like, okay, I thought only I could do it, and it was getting me, to 200,000 a year as a photographer at 26. I thought that was like really good. And then when I stepped back, added a team, of course it took me down a notch for a minute, but then, by the end of that year, I was at $400,000 for the year. Yeah. And it was just like a wild realization that I can let go of control. It's still good. My clients are still happy. I'm more refreshed. It was just a really cool realization.
And I think the reason I ask you the question, there's a lot of real estate agents and entrepreneurs that are in the same boat, right? Where they get stuck thinking they're the only one who can deliver the quality, but they don't realize that if you really have a clear roadmap, right, on how Absolutely. You intake leads, the discovery, provide the experience, the actual delivery of the product, and then get the referral. I want to talk about that. Like, what was your journey in creating that system from like lead intake to getting the referral after they're super happy with the job?
I'd say that creating that system really was a step by step, because I never hired anybody to help me do it, and I was doing everything by trial and error. I was just slowly trying to bring people in and being like, okay, what if you handle this? How does it go? And then I was really just coaching them and pulling people in locally that didn't really have any background in that. Sure. So like looking back, I definitely could have compressed the time that it took me to get to where I wanted to go had I maybe had better guidance or been brave enough to invest into someone who already had the skills instead of using my own personal time, like years of my time, to train people up to be at the level where I needed them to be. In a way, it worked great because I was able to really like have a voice, and they didn't have like a preconceived idea of how to do things. So I very much trained them from the bottom up, and that has some pros, but it definitely took me a longer time to get to where I want to go. So I'd say that was like the biggest lesson that I learned. But yeah, I definitely was just trial and erroring things as I was going.
Well, as you explain that too, I'm getting flashbacks in my brain too, where sometimes too, like if you train people up and you're so busy with the business, you're kind of falling forward. You may not be in alignment with some people. They learn everything and then they're like, I'm just going to go do this on my own. Meanwhile, you're like years ahead in terms of like, hey, by the time you figure out what I showed you, I'm going to be here. So like we can either just keep this partnership going and I'll continue focusing on like taking us to the next level. You focus on elevating. How have you found the right partners, and how have you dequalified the wrong partners through that time?
Oof, it's been tricky, and like it's a hard thing because you kind of become family when you work so closely, especially when you are training someone up from the beginning. But we have had to take a step back from the team in general this year, just because like obviously Peter is my husband, so like we work very well together and our partnership is very strong. Since joining Dan's program, it's been better because we have gone through all of the list of responsibilities and that idea of the direct responsible individual, like assigning a DRI for each metric within our business. Sure. So for Peter and I's operating and mental marriage sanity, we have gone through everything and made that very clear. And that's been a huge game changer for us in the last 6 months. But as far as like the team goes, I have stepped back from that a little bit, and we're just taking higher quality jobs at a less volume right now. Yep. So I just don't have to manage so many people.
Yeah.
And then when I do have to bring people in, I'm really trying to shift my perspective into bringing people in that are above me instead of bringing people in that I need to train. And that's been huge for us too. But I've really stepped into the coaching realm in the last, 3 or 4 months, and that's taking off wildly. So my focus has kind of shifted a little bit over there, and then we're just letting things run as they are on the photography side.
You're going to be inspiring younger talent, like little versions of you that are out there kind of scrapping it and probably saving them 10 years of pain is essentially what I'm assuming you're doing, right?
That's the goal.
Yeah, no, it's fun. And it's fun to do because you'll get better by teaching. I always say that, right? Totally. If you go into a jiu-jitsu room and you teach somebody how to do an arm bar, you're going to get better at doing an arm bar. It's kind of the same thing for your business. Now, stepping back though, double clicking on the business side, like, do you have checklists that keep everything at weddings consistent? Is it like they just know from the training, or how does that all work?
Honestly, just from doing 1,000 weddings, I think it just lives in my brain a little bit. But yeah, we have pretty significant checklists. My VA is incredible, and she has been handling the back end stuff for us for the last 6 years. And to be honest, I'm pretty checked out of that. Like, I trust her vision. She's taken my checklists from 6 years ago and made them all better and more efficient. And
Amazing.
she manages all of the client experience side leading up to the wedding for us. And then I have checklists for, you know, simple things like packing the right gear for the weddings. And we go through that every time before a wedding. And then after the wedding, for the post-production side, we have a different team that we're working with for that to get, like, we like to do a 7 to 10 day turnaround, which is honestly, if you know anything about wedding photography, it's kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
It's an unheard of turnaround time. I don't know if I've ever met anybody else who does the volume of weddings that we do at that type of turnaround without a 6 to 8 week thing. So we have a pretty seamless system where, you know, it goes to this person and they get it prepped for this person, and then it gets sent to this person and it gets edited and then it gets sent to me for final review. Yeah. So it's really seamless.
Yeah. I actually love that too. So outsourcing the editing portion, probably allowing somebody who's passionate about that side of the business, is freeing for you guys to not feel like you have to retain, train, manage editors internally, right? Because then you can focus on shooting the best quality content you could possibly imagine, directing the edit and getting the output. Is that more or less the process?
Interestingly enough, we actually use AI. There's some really incredible AI programs that have come up in the last 5 years, and we were kind of early adopters of that. And it learns. So I had to upload 3,000 of my previous edits. So I had to put the work in on the front end to be able to have that. So I uploaded 3,000 of my edits that are very consistent because I edit very consistently. And it learned almost better than I to make the edit exactly how I would. And it's wild. I've tested it so many times where I'll go in and manually edit a photo. I'll upload it to the program, have it send it back to me. And it's like, you literally could not tell the difference. If not, if anything, its edit is a little bit better and cleaner than mine. And so it's really cool. We can upload a wedding. Say we shoot 5,000 photos at a wedding. We can upload it to this program. It's called ImagenAI. And if there are any photographers out there listening to this and you don't know about this, definitely DM me and I will send you a link to try it for free, because
unreal.
It is a literal, I literally cried the first time that I used it because of how much it was changing my life. But yeah, we can upload a wedding. It will cull through. I can review the cull in maybe 15 minutes, which means like picking the right photos. And then I say send to edit. And then about 7 minutes later, it'll send it back to me. It loads it in my Lightroom program. And it's all, I'd say close to like 90% done. So that way I flip through really quick. I remove things from the background or do any like more creative edits that I need to do. And I can have a wedding done in 1 to 2 hours.
Yeah, it's bonkers. It's interesting because we have Prime Real Estate, Prime Media, and then Prime Technologies is probably going to be the next one that we open up because we're using a lot of AI on the back end.
So cool.
And I think it allows buying back hundreds of hours a week for us, right? Where we can really focus on the strategy piece and diving deep and being present with our clients and actually being more human. Where I think hearing that story from you, it's the first 10% and the last 10% that are so valuable in the process. The 80% in the middle is just clerical work that, like, imagine all that extra time now that you have to focus on the coaching and the business side of things, right?
Oh, it's incredible. Like, we're able to serve our clients so much better because we use that. And I get a lot of pushback, like on social media. If I say that we do that, people are saying like, oh, I can't believe you're still charging what you're charging if you're not doing the work. And I always have to remind people, like, people are not paying you to, you know, be miserable sitting at your desk for 40 hours a week. That's not why, as an artist or a photographer or whatever your job is, people aren't paying you for your inefficiency. They're paying you for the result. And so if I can get at the results better than I could being inefficient doing this way, I should actually be charging more money for my services now, because you're getting your photos back in 7 days and you're not waiting 6 to 8 weeks. And so it's like, just goes back to that argument of like, okay, well, if I get a better camera now, am I less valuable because the camera is doing more of the work? Or so I always find that argument so interesting about AI in any business. Like, just because I'm being smart about it doesn't mean that I'm less valuable. I think that makes me more valuable as a business owner.
Is a chainsaw more valuable in the hands of a 5-year-old or
Yeah.
an arborist, right? Like two
Yeah.
very, very different things. The same thing with AI. Like, and also, I don't think people quantify the value of the hundreds of hours you've put into learning how to use the tool where, you know, there's a value to that. A plumber doesn't get paid $1,000 an hour or $500 an hour to change a 50-cent part. They get paid for the knowledge that they've accrued in the craft that they're
Totally.
actually doing. And AI, I mean,
Absolutely.
if people aren't learning it, I think they're going to be obsolete pretty soon with people that can use it at speed. Now, going back to client care, can you walk me through a case study of a shoot where like everything could have gone wrong but didn't, and like how you and the team pulled it off? Do you have any stories that kind of pop up top of mind?
Oh man. Yep. Lots of stories. I think the biggest thing for wedding photography, especially in this type of situation where it's almost not a performance in the sense of like we are obviously shooting the wedding, but we also carry a lot of the energy of the day. So if I walk into a wedding and say it's pouring rain outside and the bride is stressed out and I'm like, "Ooh, yeah, this weather is really
Yeah.
gnarly." If that's the energy that I walk into the room with, the bride is just going to panic. And I have seen this happen with like other photographers that I've worked with and things like that where it's like you underestimate the amount of influence your energy has when you walk into a room, no matter who you are and what you're doing. And so something that I teach Peter, like we teach the people who work with us, and I teach Peter when he first started working with us, is like, no matter what is happening, everything is always fine.
Mhm.
You are confident that this is the best rain lighting you've ever seen and you're going to get the most epic photos. And I have really seen that like the more confidence you instill no matter what is going wrong, the more I talk and the more I just reassure them like everything is great, I got this, like don't worry about it, then it does work out in the end. Like we have shot weddings, we live in Hawaii, like it can be torrential downpour. We've shot weddings in the middle of a hurricane out here before, and just completely held like the clarity for the client of like, no, this is fine. Like, oh, we do this all the time. Like this is Hawaii. Like this is a blessing for your wedding. Like it's gonna be amazing. We're gonna make it like your notebook, the scene from the notebook. It's gonna be like, I love it when it's like this. And you can just see them like kind of relax in that and be like, okay, I feel like this is good. And when you can get someone to relax and be confident in what they're doing, it doesn't matter what the outside circumstances are. You can capture great emotion and great photos no matter what, as long as someone doesn't feel like it's going to be bad. And I think
Yeah.
anyone who's been in front of a camera knows that feeling where you're like, did that look weird? Do I look weird? Like if, like that self-doubt that creeps in, if you can just reassure people no matter what, like your literal camera can be on fire and you can be like, no, it's all good. It's fine.
It's
I,
funny you say that for two reasons. I was blessed to have the opportunity to shoot 3 episodes of a like professional TV show with a like critically acclaimed director, and it's featuring lakefront properties. And it was interesting because this director, there were 2 days that were good and 1 day that was terrible. And I could sense like the seller was like, oh no, we're not going to get to show how this place looks in the best weather you can possibly imagine. And there was a lot of that. And he came in and he laughed. He's like, we've shot like 250 episodes. This is better than I could tell you like 40% of them. And he's like, I got this. Don't even worry. We're going to make your property look amazing. And he
yeah.
took away that fear and loosened everybody up. And the shooting day that we did, there was one of the funnest we ever had. It was the last day of shooting. And I could tell you he had such an impact on the actors that were there, the homeowners, even myself. And I shoot a lot of content. And that was something that was top of mind for me. Right. So I don't think you're
Yeah.
wrong there at all.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've dropped, mics in the ocean. We've dropped our camera in the ocean before. We've done an underwater housing that we forgot to lock up and it had water in it. And and we always figure out a solution. There's literally always a solution that you
Yeah.
can figure out. If you
Yeah.
can just think it through, you can always make whatever happened better. And
Same
so
with
as long in the go ahead.
No, I was gonna say same with sales, right? Like talking with my team, a lot of
Yeah.
times it's 90% mindset. Like if I'm calling somebody and I'm calling to just check in, or I think they're gonna be a garbage lead, or like I've got this negative mindset, they can sense that. If I'm calling to make a 60-second friend, identify a problem and offer them some solutions, there's nothing that's going to ruin my day, right? But I've seen
Yeah.
agents fail because somebody hangs up on them or says, don't call me back, loser. And that they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that person talked to me like that. Their whole day's ruined. And then I've seen other agents laugh it off, move on to the next person and land a massive client. It's all mindset, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And it's all bringing the energy that you'd want to receive too. I think that like whatever industry you're in, being able to put yourself on the other end. So like for me, I really highly value investing in other photographers photographing me because I'd like to remember what it's like to feel a little bit vulnerable on the other side of the camera so that I can remember that and what would have made me feel better or maybe what did make me feel better and bring that in when I'm coming into shooting a client. So like I tell business owners that in whatever industry you're in, like you should make sure you're going through the experience regularly of being the client because that's going to make you a lot better on the other end when you can like identify the feelings that you had so you know what they're feeling and you can put them at ease on any type of stressor that might come up.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen that so many times where like you can deliver the best service in the world, but if you don't leave them feeling great about it, that's what they're going to remember more so than the
100%.
actual results of the service. I guess for my own personal reasons, I'd love to know like what's a massive piece of advice in your industry that you think is completely wrong?
I would say to like, well, for photography specifically, it would be to like know your prices, stick your boundaries, and like photographers are the absolute worst. So you'll go to their Instagram and it'll be like website only for inquiries. It's like they can't be bothered for people to DM them and ask them a question, or maybe someone that comes to them that's they're outside of their budget, but it's a perfect fit, and they're like obsessed with them and been following them for 10 years. I hate it when I see photographers be in a way that like turns that away instead of being like, okay, next Tuesday in the morning, who am I to turn down a $700 family shoot
Sure.
because I'm too good and I'm a wedding photographer and I can't be bothered because you DM'd me and you didn't follow my instructions.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's an ego there, especially with like the artist industries. There's a huge ego about just what your time is worth. And I can appreciate that. And I'm someone who, I charge a premium for what we do. We charge a lot of money for what we do. But I also am not against having a conversation with someone and seeing like, hey, is there some efficiency gains that I can work in here and that I can help you out, that it's still profitable and still makes sense for me to help you. I think that that's so powerful. And even just the conversation can go so far and they feel something whether they book you or not. And maybe they're going to tell their friend about you or whatever it is. It's just that energy that you're putting out is a lot more approachable. So I would definitely say that would be a huge one. And then the other one would be how many photographers on their website are like, I'm a lover who loves love and I love photography and I've always had a camera. And it's like, I'm always constantly telling people that is the literal bar is on the ground, you guys. Like you are a photographer. If you're out there saying like your biggest selling point is that you love photography, you are literally only winning against someone who says they don't love photography. Like, of course you do. You're a photographer. Like I would hope you are cool and show up on time. And so like think of something else to say. Find something else to say. And if you are doing a good job in communicating your message, it should have nothing to do with photography. You just happen to be a photographer. And so for like us, we really believe in handwritten vows and creating an intimate space for a couple on their wedding day, whether it's in a group full of people or in a cathedrals of mountains. So whatever your experience is, I just happen to be a photographer and I'll take photos of that. And so like we really focus our messaging on something that we could do without the camera. Like I could literally take someone on that experience without my camera. And so I feel like that has really been something that set us apart and something that I try to really coach other photographers when we're coaching with them to think of what else it is that you can say.
Yeah. It's so interesting you say that, because if you say like we create intimate experiences, there's a perfect avatar of client who absolutely that matters more to them than anything that is drawn towards that messaging and then ends up being your right fit client, right? That would
absolutely
attract. And man, real estate agents and photographers are more similar than they are different. Because Sam had asked me the question, he's like, what should I put in my Instagram bio? Because he's got some great accreditations. And I'm like, you're obviously can say what every other agent says, but like, you really want to think about what makes you uniquely you. Like, what do you care about that you think is going to attract the right fit clients? And if the more concise you can make that when somebody reads it, You're not just another agent saying, I give full service and I put my clients first. Like, do you really? Like, it doesn't really mean anything, right?
Well,
Like,
and I hope you do. Like, no
yeah,
one's going to say that they don't.
yeah.
So
I don't put my clients first. Yeah. Imagine you start putting that in your bio lines.
yeah.
But that's the reality of it, is I think doing that discovery really, really does make a difference. So I love that you're thoughtful about that. Now, I do want to hit you with a couple rapid fire situations just to see how quick you can kind of stick and move. So you're a photographer and you want to go to a new destination to do a gig, but you don't have a team yet. How would you approach that situation?
To clarify, a new destination, like a new country, like a destination
Yeah,
wedding.
let's just say you have to come to London, Ontario to shoot the next Prime Mastermind. It's a couple live podcasts and a really cool interaction. And because you're in my ecosystem with Dan, you got hired, but you never been here. You don't want to lug all your team and all your gear, but you need a sound guy, you need an extra camera guy. How would you come here and execute that mandate?
I would say that first things first, I would talk a lot about it on social media because that's a huge network of people that I can pull from. But honestly, I think that I would always, if I have someone that I really need, I would bring them with me. I've done this lots in the past with different destination jobs that I've done. But I'm also involved in a ton of huge communities in the photography space and in the event coordinating space. And so I would go to those professional networks and ask for recommendations of people that I need to pull it off. But yeah, I think like, because we don't really shoot events, if it was like a wedding, I absolutely have like a million different connections in the wedding industry all over the world. I've shot weddings all over the world. So I would pull from those contacts that I have and ask for their recommendations of really high quality people that they work with. And then I would move from there.
So I have to renew my vows with my wife and pick a cool destination. If
Yeah,
we're going to do
absolutely.
that. Okay. So your calendar from a business perspective is booked solid, but you're not seeing any profit. How would you make that adjustment to find more profit in your business?
I would find the bottleneck of my time and then I would outsource that, whatever that is. And then I would use that time to spend more focus on whatever it is that is bringing in the inquiries and whatever's creating a bottleneck for my pricing. If I'm not seeing any profit, then I'm obviously going to need to raise my pricing. Yeah. And if I'm raising my pricing, that should technically lower our calendar and make it less busy. But I would also invest in outsourcing the places where I need to free up some time to be able to spend more time on the growth and development side of the business.
Dan's on a wakeboard, like just clapping right now. So excited about that answer. Okay, scenario 3, you have 30,000 followers on Instagram, but you have no leads. How are you turning those followers into leads?
That's a tricky one. I don't think I would spend much time trying to turn the existing followers into leads if I'm not getting any. And I would put more effort into creating lead magnets that are valuable and provide results in advance for my actual customers that I'm trying to attract. And then I would put those out there in a way that is organic and viral to extend my reach. And then I would try and really capitalize on anyone who interacts with those as like a warm lead. And I would really DM them and ask them questions and trying to see how I can genuinely help them.
Bro, it works. It's crazy, right? Amazing. Like as you change your messaging and you start sending out, me and Sam met a builder earlier that was exactly that conversation, and saw them online, interacted with them. They're doing some cool stuff and we may work together. Maybe not now, but maybe in the future. And I think the other thing that I'll highlight for people watching, like if you listen back to what Megan was sharing in this episode, how incredible was it that like you planted seeds years ago in Calgary that led to the meeting with Dan Martell? If you had to shoot a wedding in London, Ontario, or wherever in Italy, or we went to Lake Como, you know, you have connections there because you planted seeds in those communities. So Absolutely. Like the work you're doing today really does matter for tomorrow. And it looks like you've been thoughtful about that throughout your entire career.
Yeah, I think I've been thoughtful, but also a little bit lucky. Like I definitely have just been, you know, winging it up until this point in the last 6 months, being a lot more intentional of how I'm moving. And the results that I'm seeing in the last 6 months are literally like, I feel like I'm in the middle of a quantum leap right now. Like it is actually insane the amount of growth that we have had in 6 months. To give you an example, before I hired Dan as my coach, I pulled money out of my retirement savings because our business was so slow. Everyone was saying that the wedding industry was quiet. It was a weird year for everybody and that tourism was down in Hawaii. And so I just accepted that and just was like, I guess it's just a slow year for us. And my car broke down and it was going to be $14,000 to fix, and I didn't have it.
Yeah.
And so instead of fixing the car, I pulled money out of our retirement savings, which my husband, thank gosh, he's just like, so supportive. And he was like, yeah, go do it. Let's do it. And I gave it to Dan. Basically, it was just like, okay, I'm going all in, and we're going to surpass 80,000 this month.
Wow, that's incredible. Good for you.
That's wild.
What a story. I think it's a lot about the intentionality of things, right? And a lot of the, painful lessons that you've had in the past, they're not a loss, right? Like they are only a loss if you sit there and you stew in them versus learning them, using them as a lesson to refine who you're going to become in the future, right?
You can't make those things your personality.
No, they don't define you. That's for sure.
Yeah.
If you lost everything today, what would your 30-day rebuild plan look like?
Ooh, if I lost everything, I would just keep doing what I'm doing right now. Honestly, I would continue to pour as much time, energy, and resources I have into social media. I'm really trying to grow my social media to 60,000 followers by Christmas. That's been my goal since I started. So I'm up 12,000 from when I started a couple months ago. And just extending my reach, learning how to really hone in content and how to reach the right people and bring value to them, not just for the sake of collecting followers, but for the sake of actually creating an impact. And I think if I lost everything in 30 days, I would just continue to try and stay really consistent and intentional on where I'm spending my time, money, and energy. And I honestly would bet on social media and the connections that it's brought. I would invest in coaching, which I'm already doing. So I would continue to do that and continue talking to people on social media. I spent literally a decade just trying to avoid talking to people in all situations of life. And I realized how much of a handicap that's given me, and to actually just talk to people. And it's true. And my life is so much better for it. And I think I would just continue doing that. I feel like I'm on a good path right now.
Well, you just spent almost an hour talking to us and everybody listening to this episode. So I definitely appreciate you making the time. Thank you so much for sharing your system and kind of the soul behind what you do in your work. Now, if you want to see what was talked about in action, everybody go check out the Bradyhouse Studios website, and specifically Meg's Bloom and Banter podcast. You can grab her free creative business checklist in the show notes. And if it helps you, share it with somebody who you think would appreciate this episode. We do prime people to expose people in our network to incredible people like Meg. I'm sure you're going to keep growing and growing in the future. So be excited to have you back on the show down the road to see what's going on in Hawaii and in your business in the future. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.